Step into the arena of minds. On this channel, every move is a clash of strategy, every sacrifice a turning point, and every game a battle for glory. Watch two players push the limits of creativity and calculation as we bring you the drama, suspense, and excitement of chess like never before. Wesley opens with e4, advancing boldly like a warrior's spear, immediately claiming central dominance and setting fire to the battle lines. Dominguez replies with c5, a sharp Sicilian strike, countering Wesley's advance and signaling a tactical war brewing without mercy. Wesley develops nf3, leaping his knight into the fray, protecting e4 and preparing to unleash pressure across the center swiftly. Dominguez fortifies c6, solidifying the center, while quietly plotting counterplay, ready to challenge Wesley's ambitions at any moment. Wesley strikes with d4, tearing open the battlefield, daring Dominguez to respond or face immediate tactical storms in the middle. Dominguez captures cxd4, snatching the pawn decisively, forcing Wesley to react and intensifying the central tension with calculated precision. Wesley recaptures in x4, his knight landing powerfully in the center, holding the battlefield while threatening further dynamic operations. Dominguez develops nf6, targeting Wesley's e4 pawn, setting up potential attacks and keeping the tension boiling like a pressure cooker. Wesley jumps nc3, reinforcing the center and connecting forces, his knight poised to jump into tactical skirmishes with deadly efficiency. Dominguez pushes a6, preventing infiltration, preparing queenside expansion, and laying the groundwork for a patient yet explosive strategy. Wesley develops b3, aiming diagonals with subtle menace, coordinating pieces for central control and looming kingside threats. Dominguez leaps ng4, aggressively probing Wesley's bishop, threatening exchanges and attempting to destabilize the white structure. Wesley retreats b-pawn, repositioning his bishop safely, maintaining flexibility, while secretly plotting a sudden tactical counterpunch. Dominguez pulls nf6 back, a tactical retreat to reorganize forces, preparing to launch precise strikes against Wesley's central setup. Wesley plays f3, shoring up the center, pushing back the knight, and signaling readiness for a sharp kingside offensive soon. Dominguez pushes f5, striking the heart of Wesley's position, challenging the center, and opening the battlefield for explosive complications. Wesley repositions nb3, rerouting his knight for maximum influence, keeping pressure on c5 and preparing queenside infiltration. Dominguez develops b6, placing his bishop on a commanding diagonal, reinforcing the center and signaling looming threats across the board. Wesley plays b3, solidifying control, harmonizing his pieces, and subtly threatening tactical strikes that could erupt unexpectedly. Dominguez advances h5, pushing a pawn aggressively, hinting at kingside storms and preparing chaos that could explode any second. Wesley storms g4, pushing the pawn forward aggressively, threatening to rip open Dominguez's kingside and ignite a tactical inferno. Dominguez counters q8, retreating his queen to defend key squares, bracing for Wesley's relentless kingside assault. Wesley captures ixhc5, sacrificing for chaos, tearing lines open, and forcing Dominguez's king into an immediate defensive nightmare. Dominguez recaptures fxc5, taking the pawn reluctantly, accepting structural weaknesses while desperately trying to hold the line. Wesley develops BD3, lining up diagonals with deadly intent, coordinating pieces to maximize pressure on Dominguez's vulnerable king side. Dominguez answers bh6, aiming his bishop menacingly, challenging Wesley's coordination, and threatening to blunt the central and kingside pressure. Wesley swings rfd2, mobilizing the rook for attack, connecting forces, and preparing to storm open files with surgical precision. Dominguez responds bxa3, exchanging pieces to reduce immediate threats, attempting to simplify the position amid Wesley's mounting pressure. Wesley recaptures qxa3, queen reclaiming its post with authority, centralizing while keeping lethal threats against Dominguez's fragile kingside. Dominguez retreats n7, repositioning the knight defensively, readying to block key lines while plotting a potential counterattack later. Wesley lifts rg2, rook sliding onto the g-file, doubling down on kingside pressure, and signaling an unstoppable assault approaching Dominguez's king. Dominguez moves nf5, knight jumps to challenge Wesley's attack, trying to create tactical barricades while holding the fragile defensive front. Wesley captures bsf5, removing the active knight, simplifying yet opening lines that promise a storm of checks and deadly threats. Dominguez recaptures rxf5, rook swoops in to maintain material balance, defending while nervously eyeing Wesley's rapidly approaching attack. Wesley reroutes nb3, knight retreating strategically, aiming to control central squares and prepare for a late tactical incursion against Dominguez's king. Dominguez steps kg7, king sidesteps cautiously, escaping immediate threats while staying close to key defensive squares and his remaining pieces. Wesley maneuvers ndt2, knight shifts subtly, positioning for central dominance, while keeping tactical pressure over Dominguez's weakened pawns. Dominguez strikes qxh3, queen snatches the pawn, injecting sudden danger and threatening checks that could turn the game into a tactical skirmish. Wesley advances kf2, king steps forward boldly, marching into the center to coordinate pieces while supporting the looming attack with fearless intent. Dominguez doubles rooks with raf8, rook joins forces, consolidating defense and preparing to counter Wesley's mounting kingside offensive. Wesley lifts archer-gone, doubling rooks on the g-file, preparing an unstoppable assault while Dominguez braces desperately for the storm. Dominguez pushes e4, striking in the center aggressively, trying to counter Wesley's pressure and open tactical opportunities unexpectedly. Wesley captures nc4, knight lunges forward, eliminating the central pawn and keeping Dominguez under relentless kingside pressure. Dominguez responds rxf3, sacrificing the exchange to disrupt Wesley's attack, seeking counterplay amid the fiery battlefield. Wesley swings rxeg6, rook sacrifices to rip open the king's cover, forcing Dominguez's king into exposed and dangerous terrain. Dominguez recaptures rxc6, taking the rook while his king teeters, trying to survive the incoming waves of coordinated assault. Wesley follows up rxg6, doubling the pressure, driving Dominguez's king further into the open and intensifying tactical chaos. Dominguez captures kx6 g reluctantly steps into danger, accepting vulnerability to avoid immediate checkmate threats from Wesley. Wesley centralizes qxf3, queen dominates the board, controlling critical squares, and setting up for devastating finishing blows. Dominguez counters qe3k, queen trades to reduce threats, aiming to survive, while Wesley's pieces coordinate like a deadly machine. Wesley recaptures kxf3. King centralizes boldly, joining the battle directly and adding support to overwhelming pressure across the board. Dominguez pushes f5. Knight jumps forward aggressively, attempting forks and tactical nuisances to delay Wesley's assault. Wesley steps k4. King advances fearlessly, refusing to hide while controlling vital squares and supporting coordinated attacks. Dominguez captures c4. Knight snatches material, but leaves holes, risking devastating checks and losing cohesion in the defense. Wesley pushes b3. Pawn solidifies structure, restricting Dominguez pieces while preparing to exploit weaknesses in the enemy camp. Dominguez retreats f5, repositioning the knight defensively, trying to block central files while keeping a last line of resistance. Wesley captures nx6. Knight swoops in, eliminating a key defender, opening lines for decisive threats against Dominguez's fragile position. Dominguez jumps d3. Knight forks king and pawn, injecting tactical complications in a desperate attempt to survive Wesley's assault. Wesley calmly steps k4. King dodges the check, marching forward boldly while keeping coordination for a final crushing strike. Dominguez responds in cone. Knight retreats strategically, attempting to regroup and create counterchances amid Wesley's dominating presence. Wesley steps k5. King boldly marches, asserting control over central squares while Dominguez struggles to coordinate his scattered forces. Dominguez jumps d3 key. Knight strikes again, harassing Wesley's king and pawns, while seeking tactical counterplay in desperate chaos. Wesley calmly moves kd4. King sidesteps threats with precision, maintaining dominance and tightening the grip around Dominguez's disorganized pieces. Dominguez retreats cone. Knight moves back strategically, trying to regroup defensively, while Wesley's forces loom like a relentless storm. Wesley positions nc8. Knight invades deeply, targeting key squares and cutting off escape routes for Dominguez's vulnerable king and remaining pieces. Dominguez moves kf7. King steps carefully, attempting to escape threats while facing relentless pressure from Wesley's coordinated attack. Wesley advances k5. King boldly strides forward, controlling central files and supporting pawns and pieces ready to finish the domination. Dominguez plays k8. King shuffles defensively, desperately avoiding checks while Wesley's pieces tighten the noose around his position. Wesley pushes k6. King storms forward aggressively, cutting escape squares and asserting absolute dominance across the board. Dominguez moves k8. King sidesteps cautiously, trying to survive while Wesley's forces threaten every available square with lethal precision. Wesley advances d6. Pawn thrusts forward like a spear, cutting off Dominguez's pieces and creating unstoppable threats in the center. Dominguez retreats d3. Knight repositions defensively, attempting to block pathways and slow Wesley's unstoppable march toward victory. Wesley captures b6. Knight swoops in, snatching material and increasing the pressure, leaving Dominguez's king dangerously exposed. Dominguez jumps n4. Knight forks king and pawns, seeking temporary complications to distract Wesley from finishing the game. Wesley steps k5. King advances courageously, escaping forks and maintaining coordination, pressing forward with terrifying precision. Dominguez retreats n2. Knight repositions to defend, but Wesley's attack grows stronger, threatening decisive breakthroughs. Wesley moves k6, king marches, dominating the center and coordinating with remaining pieces to seal Dominguez's fate completely. Dominguez repositions nf4e, knight checks king again, attempting to create tactical confusion, though the position heavily favors Wesley. Wesley steps kf6. King calmly evades threats, maintaining central dominance and consolidating all attacking forces toward checkmate. Dominguez retreats net2. Knight tries last maneuvers to survive, but Wesley's coordinated pieces leave no safe havens for the black king. Wesley steps 7, pawn surges forward, threatening promotion while Dominguez scrambles, unable to find a safe square for his king. Dominguez jumps nc3, knight advances aggressively, attempting to block the pawn's path, but Wesley's attack grows ever more relentless. Wesley maneuvers k6, king strides forward, shielding pawns and coordinating pieces, closing Dominguez's limited escape routes with deadly intent. Dominguez retreats nb5, knight repositions defensively, desperately seeking relief, but Wesley's forces dominate every critical square. Wesley advances k6, king marches into enemy territory, controlling central escape squares while coordinating with pawns and knights for total dominance. Dominguez jumps nf4e, knight checks king, trying to create tactical distractions, but Wesley calmly deflects the threat with precision and control. Wesley sidesteps kd5, king evades check, maintaining strong central control and tightening the noose around Dominguez's exposed king and scattered pieces. Dominguez retreats nb5, knight returns defensively, hoping to shield key squares, though Wesley's coordinated attack grows unstoppable. Wesley positions nc5-5, knight invades, controlling crucial central and kingside squares, cutting off escape routes, and squeezing Dominguez mercilessly. Dominguez steps k7, king shuffles cautiously, trying to avoid traps, yet Wesley's dominating pieces leave virtually no safe options. Wesley advances k6, king boldly pushes forward, coordinating with the knight to tighten the final noose around Dominguez's fragile position. Dominguez jumps nd4e, knight forks again, attempting temporary chaos, though Wesley's king and knight coordination neutralize all threats. Wesley moves kf7, king marches steadily, asserting central control while preparing for the final decisive assault on Dominguez's scattered defenses. Dominguez retreats nd5, knight repositions defensively, desperately trying to hold lines, but Wesley's attack remains dominant and overwhelming. Wesley advances k6, king centralizes perfectly, cutting off all escape routes while threatening unstoppable tactical strikes across the board. Dominguez plays nc4e, knight checks king, a last-ditch attempt at counterplay, though Wesley's position remains rock-solid and menacing. Wesley steps kf6, king calmly evades the check, maintaining central dominance and coordinating pieces for the inevitable crushing finale. Dominguez retreats net2, knight moves back defensively, trying to slow Wesley's relentless march, but the black king teeters dangerously. Wesley pushes d-qq, pawn promoters gloriously to queen, turning the tide into a crushing victory and sealing Dominguez's fate decisively. Dominguez steps nf5, knight makes one last desperate check, but Wesley's queen and king coordination annihilate any remaining hope. Wesley calmly steps k6, king dominates the center, coordinating perfectly with the queen, leaving Dominguez's knight trapped and powerless. Dominguez retreats N4 eti. Knight checks king, attempting last-moment chaos, though Wesley's king and queen coordination nullify all threats effortlessly. Wesley moves kf7, king advances boldly, centralizing completely, while Dominguez's defenses crumble under relentless, precise pressure. Dominguez jumps n5, knight forks king and pawns, desperately seeking a lifeline, but Wesley's forces remain perfectly aligned for victory. Wesley sidesteps kf6, king evades smoothly, maintaining control over all critical squares and reinforcing his dominating position relentlessly. Dominguez retreats nd4a. Knight forces check again, a last tactical hope, yet Wesley's coordination renders every attempt futile. Wesley steps k6. King marches decisively, cutting off escape squares and preparing to crush Dominguez's remaining coordination completely. Dominguez plays n4. Knight launches a futile attack, but Wesley's king and queen combine flawlessly, anticipating every trick with precision. Wesley calmly moves kf6. King sidesteps while coordinating with queen and pawns, leaving Dominguez no breathing room at all. Dominguez retreats net2. Knight tries defensive maneuvers, but Wesley's pieces dominate the board, leaving the black king vulnerable and cornered. Wesley advances k6. King storms forward, asserting absolute control over central squares, preparing for unstoppable mating threats. Dominguez plays nc3. Knight jumps forward, desperately trying to block pathways, yet Wesley's overwhelming coordination prevents any relief. Wesley positions nb5. Knight lands strategically, controlling key squares and cutting off all remaining escape routes for Dominguez's king. Dominguez retreats nd4t. Knight checks king one final time, hoping for chaos, though Wesley's coordination negates all potential threats. Wesley steps kf7. King boldly centralizes, asserting dominance while preparing a decisive final blow to end Dominguez's resistance. Dominguez moves n3. Knight advances desperately, attempting any defense, but Wesley's queen, king, and knight coordination remain flawless. Wesley pushes k6. King marches forward, reinforcing the central hold and preparing for the final sequence that will seal victory. Dominguez jumps nc7. Knight checks, a last desperate fork, yet Wesley's precision leaves no escape for the black king. Wesley calmly steps kd6. King evades perfectly, maintaining central control while preparing the final crushing attack on Dominguez's pieces. Dominguez retreats nb5. Knight repositions defensively, attempting to block threats, but Wesley's overwhelming forces dominate the board completely. Wesley moves kgx. King boldly centralizes further, dominating key squares and coordinating all forces for the final assault. Dominguez jumps nd4e. Knight checks king, a last desperate tactic, yet Wesley's coordination remains perfect, leaving no hope. Wesley steps kd5. King advances boldly, cutting off all escape squares, while Dominguez's scattered pieces are helpless under immense pressure. Dominguez retreats nb5. Knight repositions defensively, a futile attempt to hold lines, as Wesley's forces prepare the final strike. Wesley positions ncf5. Knight invades decisively, cutting escape squares, coordinating with king and pawns, sealing Dominguez's fate completely. Dominguez steps k7. King moves cautiously, cornered and powerless, facing the combined might of Wesley's pieces ready to deliver the coup. Wesley executes k6. King marches into enemy territory, perfectly coordinating with remaining pieces, leaving Dominguez no defense, finalizing a brilliant victory. That's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to bring you even more exciting chess games. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.